Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to the episode of my F1 2020 My Team Career Mode, episode number 128 today for the Japanese Grand Prix in Season 7, and it is very much crunch time in this season. We have only got 3 rounds to go. This one, Mexico, and then the Brazilian Grand Prix. It's really come by quite quickly, despite being such a hefty season and so much action in it, and last time out was no different. If you guys did miss that one, then be sure to go check that one out. That was a chaotic Singapore Grand Prix, to say the least. 3 safety cars involved there, and I won't spoil it for you if you haven't seen it, but one absolutely insane podium, and it means going into then the last 3 rounds, we do still lead the championship, and we actually managed to build a bit of a larger gap to Lando, and that's despite having such a shaky Singapore Grand Prix in areas of that race. So, you know, at one point we were in the bottom 4 places of that entire running order, and then obviously we had the penalty for the extension and the penalty for the pit lane entry, and it was looking quite doom and gloom, but we, I think you can agree, had a mega last in where we just got our head down, really used the pace that we know the car had. Thankfully for us, and unfortunately for him, Lando's AI got caught in a bit of an AI train where they just weren't able to overtake each other, and there was like a whole train back from I think P6 all the way to like P13 it was, that were just kind of stuck there. But we made the moves count. On the road, we technically finished in P1. Of course, it was then in the end P6, but that's still pretty good, obviously, in the context of Lando not scoring any points, and actually a lot of big names not scoring points. I mean, Ocon and Stroll, you know, 2 guys in the top 5 of the standings, both DNF'd out that Grand Prix. Ocon with an engine failure, and Stroll being crashed out, and Gasly also finished outside the points. So, you know, a lot of the big guys, a lot of the big names in this season didn't do quite well, didn't actually get any points out of that, but we, as quite a lot of the time we do, we just kind of persevere, made the most of it, and yeah, it was far away from P1 where we actually finished on the road, but I actually think after what will happen to us, I will happily take P6, and it means we extended our lead in the championship. So, and to a decent amount, actually, really, in the context of career mode, this gap we've got with Lando right now, with only 3 rounds to go, is fairly large, actually, so feeling pretty good. But as we go into the Japanese Grand Prix, feeling less confident about how this race may go, it's quite a difficult one against AI. I've had some good races here, but also some quite tough ones. But you can clearly see there is rain in the air, there is rain on the track, and it's going to be a bit of a wet one as we enter Q1. And it looks like the rain, unfortunately, may stay with us for most of the race weekend. It might dry out towards the end of today on Saturday, but it looks like it might return for Sunday. So that's going to be quite tricky. As usual, the AI are very good on this game in the wet. You guys know, if you've watched, you know, just a few videos of mine, but if you've been watching for a while now, through the F1 games through the years, I've just never been that great in the wet. It's definitely one of my biggest, weakest points in terms of my racing versus AI in various F1 career modes, but we're going to have to try and make the most of it, and to be fair, our car is that good that I should be able to at least kind of get through these sessions, and then kind of we'll see what we can do in the race. So Q1 got through, matched Lando pretty closely there, actually. I was quite happy about that. Very surprised to see both Alfa Romeos looking very slow there. George Russell, one of the podium finishes last episode, way down the order, behind Latifi as well, so he's had a bit of a mare, and maybe a bit of a reality check and drop down, but it's a bit of a, well, I mean, a wet session is always a bit hectic and messy, and it seems both Williams cars got through, and also on the Alpines as well. So, you know, that's the thing with wet sessions, it kind of almost throws the form book out the window, even though this season, I think you guys will agree, there's not been much of a form book. It's been very hard to tell which team's going to be quick at what circuit, and then we've had some incredible scenes like last episode where somehow, against all the odds, a car like a Haas in the hands of Mick Schumacher comes through for the race win. But when the rain comes, much like in real life, the form book is thrown out, and it's really just about what driver can do the business, you know, there and then, no matter what the form has been in the previous races and how good their car is. And that very much includes me, so we need to make sure we can get through these sessions. We don't make too many mistakes. They will crop up. It's just natural in the wet, but we need to get our head down and do the best job we can, basically. So we went on 2 consecutive flying laps, you'll see here, because we continue on then after that first flyer in Q2. So putting up enough fuel to do 2 laps in a row across the line, 7/10 gain on that second lap, and a purple last sector, and finding some time to get us through into the top 10 shootout. But in the end then, at the end of that session basically, a load of people went out. Myself and Lando stayed in the garage with that one, or the first kind of runs we did, and it looks like the track got a little bit quicker, and like I said, I think it's maybe going to get a bit drier at the end of this one, so maybe into Q3 we might actually have some dry running on the slick tyres, but the track definitely got quicker, and we're actually quite lucky. If the track got any quicker, I might have been out of the drop zone. Lando might have been out of the drop zone. I mean, Albon did get knocked out with Leclerc as well, and the two Red Bull cars. And actually, I have only just actually clocked here. I should be more surprised than I have sounded. Both Williams cars have got through into Q3, and Jack Aitken was up in P2 there, not too far off Pierre Gasly in the Mercedes car. I really don't... The track really must have ramped up right at the end there. Kvyat also got through in the Alpine car in P7. We said how slow the Alpine was last episode at Singapore. So yeah, the track must have really got a lot quicker. And so that might suggest that going into Q3, that we may be in for some dry running. And to that effect, staring at the screen in our garage, we can see the indications are there. In 10 minutes time, it says you've got the kind of cloud figure that without the rain droplets. So that indicates it is going to be getting to dry. People are going out on intermediates right now. I just thought there's no point. There's no point wasting time. There's no point, risking a crash or something in the first part of this Q3 session. We may as well wait until it gets to dry. But because obviously we're going from wet to dry in this session, we're going to want to wait actually the longest possible till right at the end of the session to go out, because that will be the driest point of the circuit, the most amount of grip maybe, with a few other cars having gone out already. So we're going to wait right to the end and go out with a few people. Hopefully don't get caught up in too much traffic. It looks like we're kind of all good, but it's still very doom and gloom. So even though the kind of track's dried up, definitely is not very sunny. So the track's going to be maybe a little bit damp here in places, maybe around the curbs, but the car immediately feeling so much better. I mean, just look at the comparison here from what we had in Q1 and Q2. This car felt and looks like it's on rails. I mean, just that twitch there, left and right, rear end steps out, but we've got so much more grip down, confidence in the car, in the dry. It's really a godsend. You don't realise how quick these maxed out cars, I think, are in career mode until you have a session like this where you go from immediately wet to dry from Q2 to Q3. Really an absolute monster. Pleasure to drive around Suzuka, and I tried my best, and it was only enough for P5 there, but I don't know what I was expecting. It's very hard to gauge where we were going to be because obviously we didn't put a time in, and it wouldn't have mattered because everyone improved their lap times from the intermediates to the dry. So for us, I mean, this is where we kind of just one place off where we were at Singapore, so I actually got to be quite happy, really, because if we look back at the form guide in qualifying, Lando's always beaten us quite a fair bit, but this time he has not got a pole position. Max Verstappen has got a pole, and surprising to see that, really, because the Mercedes cars have been woeful in qualifying in the last two episodes. They've had an absolute mare. They got knocked out in Q2 in both Singapore and also the Italian Grand Prix, so return to form then for the Dutchman, and Gasly a little bit down the order in P6, but yeah, Norris doing well in P2, McLaren all second row. But as I said, and I can confirm, I've looked at the indicator in the email system, there is rain to come on Sunday. I'm hoping the game does one of those things where it says it's going to rain and doesn't, because I'd rather not, but it's indicating it might be raining for the entire race. So we may have quite a tough one on our hands from P5, right in the thick of it, just try and limit the damage basically to what we can do to Lando. Let's go to the grid.
Welcome along then to the magnificent Suzuka International Circuit, a stone's throw away from Issa Bay in the beautiful Japanese countryside. What surprises lie in wait for us today in the Japanese Grand Prix? We're southwest of the city of Nagoya today at a wet and windy Suzuka circuit. 3.6 miles and 18 corners make up a lap here, with Sector 1 likely to prove especially difficult in these conditions. We should see overtaking into turns 1 and 16 today, and maybe a few Kobayashi-style dives into the hairpin as well. And as always, a man with plenty of racing experience joins me in the commentary box. Today it's Anthony Davidson. Tell me, Ant, you're no stranger to surviving the melee of turn 1. So how do you keep out of trouble when there's so much going on around you?
There are three main things to worry about there, Crofty: positioning, awareness and discipline. First, you have to put your car in a bit of space and make sure you have room to react to what the others are doing. Then you have to watch your mirrors and listen to the sounds around you to get a sense of where everyone is. And finally, just don't get too greedy. Just because a gap exists doesn't always mean you should go for it.
Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. Young superstar Max Verstappen starts from pole position, and Lando Norris lines up alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Hamilton, the owner-driver, Pierre Gasly and Stroll, Giotto, Kvyat, Bottas, and Alexander Albon, Leclerc, Ricciardo, Esteban Ocon. They've taken a grid penalty, and Sainz, Giovinazzi, De Vries, Nicholas Latifi and Jack Aitken. Matsushita, Russell, Schumacher and Kevin Magnussen fills the last spot on the grid. And now it's time to head down to the track.
So not only is it wet, it looks quite a bit wet. It looks like it's a little bit too wet for the intermediates, but yet we're all on intermediates. We've got, a triple streak icon there on the top of the forecast, but we're all in inters. So I guess it's maybe, if the race was starting a little bit earlier, we might have started on full wet tyres. So I guess we're going to have to just deal with it, and we might have just a little bit of a twitchy rear end, but we'll make the most of it. Dropping down the fuel as per, not using too much fuel in the wet. I probably won't even be in rich mix too often because that's just going to spin up the rear tyres. So if this is in fact going to be here for the entire race, we've got a long afternoon ahead of us with no sun, a severe lack of grip, and we'll see where we go. The only positive is actually I think Ocon had a grid penalty there, so we do actually start one place higher in P4. So at least we've got a little bit lucky already before the race even begins. So let's try and build on that then, and let's see how we go on this race start. Because here we are then, going to 5 red lights to the third last race of this season. Very much crunch time here today. Fire lights are out and we're underway, and it's a great start for Hamilton. Bit of a shaky one for Lando. It's actually a really great one for us, and we pulled alongside him. It's 3 abreast. Verstappen gets away well, and Lando makes some contact with us. We've locked up. We've been pushed wide. I think we got pushed wide by Lando in a lockup as well. We're in the gravel, and we've just about kept it in a straight line. Yellow flags ahead as look at the spray. There is too much rain for these intermediates. Yeah, like I said, if this race started like a lap or two earlier, like a few minutes earlier, we would have been on full wets, I think. So much spray coming off, and I think Lando also went off then when he made contact with me. I think Verstappen's altered down the order. A few cars went wide, and they're all tiptoeing round. It's 3 abreast, and Ocon's been spun round in the S section. We've got yellow flags. We've got around the outside of Schumacher and Magnussen. They're a bit cheeky because we are technically still in the yellows, but the game hasn't told us anything about it. So we've overtaken those 2 Haas cars, and we're up into P19, and we're ahead of last race's race winner there. Yellow flags up the road, and oh my goodness me, everyone's had a mare, and we've crashed into Leclerc. Leclerc's out the Grand Prix, Sainz out the Grand Prix, and there's an absolute mayhem, an absolute zoo, a packed out gravel trap full of cars. And the safety car is out. I mean, this game doesn't have red flags, but we needed one. FIA. This was way too dangerous to even start this race in these conditions on intermediates. And we've all been far too stubborn with wanting to stay on the inters because we know it's going to be properly fine and, perfect for inters a little bit down the line. But, I mean, look at that. I mean, front wing damage for the AlphaTauri sends in wide. But there's just not enough grip out there. And you've got so many cars going wide, apart from the race leaders. Lando, I think he's in P3 or 4. But Verstappen, I think he's not in the race lead. He's not. He's in second. But these guys have got enough grip, it seems, maybe, through 130R. But is that a Williams car in P1? I think it may have been, I think it may have been the blue of a Williams car. We can't confirm that to you quite yet. But I think Verstappen and Lando then still very much in the top 4. And we're now down to P14, which wouldn't be that bad, all things considered, of us being off. But we've got damage from Leclerc, and we've also got a penalty. We got penalised for that damage and for that hit. Even though I had no control of the car, I actually came onto the scene and just saw a whole gaggle of cars have an issue. It was almost like when you see like a MotoGP race when there's been at times where there's been oil on the circuit and all the riders just fall off and just go wide, or if there was ever oil on the track in F1. And there's just not enough grip with these intermediates, but at the same time, it is going to be fully an intermediates race, so there's no point going on to full wets right now because we know it's only going to get drier, even if it started off and definitely looks like it's a bit too wet for these Inters right now, especially with this safety car. Might dry out a little bit, but we you know, there's no mechanic for it in the game, but if, you know, I feel like in the future, if they did have it, there definitely would have been, a minimum starting under a safety car or going to red flag as soon as we hit turn 1, and you saw the amount of spray that's still coming off the cars. It looks like monsoon rain, but we're all on Inters. It's madness, and there we go, confirmation. This is Luca Giotto in the Williams in first place. You've got the Racing Point in second then, so something else has occurred, or maybe they made some pit stops. I think maybe Verstappen had damage. I don't know. Verstappen's just fallen away. He's made a mistake somewhere. He's fallen back behind Lando, so Lando's in P3, then 2 Mercedes cars. So like we saw at Imola, you know, you've got to remember the rules of F1. If you make a mistake under the safety car, you can't regain the positions. You have to just firm it and stay where you are. So it looks like maybe Verstappen made a mistake under the safety car, and Lando's jumped back up into P3 then. So after such a chaotic start then, he's managed to come out unscathed with no damage. So our teammate, our championship rival, is right up there in a podium position right now. Long way to go though, only lap 3, but we're down now P17. We've served our penalty though in the pit stop, so that's very good. Unlike Singapore, we won't have an issue where we finish is not where we're actually going to finish, you know, properly once the race results come in. But now we go again, but look how much spray is coming off the front tyres there, and also Magnussen. I still think it's a little bit too wet out there. It feels like the rear end just has no grip to work with. I mean, let's see how it is into turn 1. We're going to lift off very early, and we're going to chop away at the steering wheel, and the car has a little bit more grip than what we had on lap number 1, but that may just be this part of the circuit. Remember, with F1 2020, I think since last year, 2019, there's localized weather, so it means on one part of the circuit it could be wetter than others, and that's what you're seeing right here as we all go off on these Inters. Not working out. I think the Alpine tries to get down my inside. Look at the spray down this straight. So it looks like Sector 3 is still a bit wet through 130R. Well, let's see how it goes. We're going to have to lift off and just really take an easy break into 130R. And the car ahead of us has an absolute mare, Magnussen in the Haas. But it looks like Sector 1 then is dry enough maybe for the Inters and is not as wet. But a lot of cars going wide. We go around the outside of Magnussen, try and dance away around. Doesn't work out there in the end. K-Mag actually stops us just in our tracks. And so we're actually still behind him. And now I think the Alpine car has a good run on us. But just looking at that front right tyre, and how much water is coming off and is just standing on the circuit. We're wobbling about, defending against the Alpine and Matsushita. We move on later into the lap. Yellow flags, and Magnussen is slowing up. I think that he's got an engine failure there. So annoyingly, you know, he held us up for a lap and then he just decided to retire. So good stuff there. But we got yellow flags. And I actually think it might be a full course safety car, because Magnussen is parking up here, and I think I definitely saw yellows popping up on the other side of the circuit. There was green in that sector, but I think it was yellow in this one as we go wide, because there's just no grip. There's just absolutely no grip, and the full course safety car is out for the second time now in 3 laps. I don't know if that is for Magnussen, but it could just easily be because of the conditions, because it's just too wet still. The Inters, they're just not working Sector 3 as you want them to, and people are just losing grip everywhere. And so we're underneath looking to catch the safety car now. A few more people are off the road in turn 1. There's been an incident. The Alpha Tauri's off, and what has gone on here? Lando's slow, Alfa Romeo slow. The Racing Point's still going on though, so that's all fine. There's damage to that Alfa Romeo car, so I wonder if there was a crash. And in the lead, it's still the Williams then. Williams is still in the lead, so that's not changed. But it's not Giotto anymore. It's Jack Aitken. Jack Aitken's in the lead. It's Hamilton in second in the McLaren. Then it's Giotto, Alpha Tauri, Racing Point of Stroll. Then Verstappen. Then you've got, I think that's George Russell by the helmet. Hard to tell. I think it's George Russell in the Alfa Romeo. And where is Lando? Then it's Lando and then Pierre Gasly. So Lando's lost a few positions. He went off circuit then at turn 1. Got caught up maybe in the fight with George Russell. Who knows? Who knows? But here we are trying to catch up to the safety car queue. And we go, what the hell is that? What the hell has just gone on there? The safety car has just taken us out. Why was the safety car? Where was the... What? Where was the safety car coming from? Why is Bert Marlander driving the safety car? Where is he gone? What? Huh? I'm so baffled. What has gone on here? This was a slow-mo. This was us catching the safety car queue. Also, obviously, I'm pushing hard to catch the queue. At this point, this is where I clock what's occurring. I slam on the brakes, but obviously, being the wet, the two front brakes just lock up. So I just go forwards because that's what happens when you slam on the brakes in the wet. But at this point, this is the first point where I thought, wait, what's going on here? I can see a big silver blob ahead of me. Then I realise what's actually going on. What's occurring is it looks like Bert Mylander has driven the safety car. I don't even know from where, but he's driving it back on circuit right into the racing line when we're pushing hard to catch the queue to make sure we don't lose out on the restart. And we've been taken out by the safety car. Now, what the hell? What is that? What is that? That is what happened. We need to rewind that back because that's what occurred. And then he absolutely just explodes us on the rear end. But can we just replay that? What has occurred there is, because there's enough grip. Look at all the F1 cars. They're all fine. They've all taken the corner. But the safety car has not had enough grip. I'm just guessing. I don't know. I'm guessing that's what happened there. It just seems like he's driven straight, but he's not had enough grip to make the corner, and he's just driven simply straight off into the gravel trap. He's driven back on very dangerously, ironically for the safety car, driven back dangerously right onto the racing line where a car like mine would be pelting through trying to catch the safety car queue. Little did I know I was catching the actual safety car. And I tried to react. I did react by braking, but that just completely messed everything up even more. Locked me up, and we went straight into the back of him. And so that's it. What a whirlwind, but short Grand Prix for... I feel like we've done a whole Grand Prix, yet we only did about 6 laps. But I need to lie down after that one, because that's it. We're out. We're out of the Japanese Grand Prix. And there were 2 Williams in the top 3 when we DNF'd.
That's a spectacular victory then, and with it, the championship is secure. It's been a magnificent season, and they thoroughly deserve the cheers of the crowd here today. So, Anthony, what made the difference out there today?
Well, they clearly have a car that comes alive in the kind of conditions we were dealing with today. It's a very balanced package in the wet, and what that means is that the drivers have confidence to attack, and having that confidence gets you on the power earlier, it lets you brake later, and can put you a long way up the road.
Well, I'm thoroughly exhausted after the excitement of that race, but I'm sure it's nothing compared to our drivers here. They've worked hard to make it up there, and it's great to see them make their way out onto the podium.
Are you actually kidding me? Are you... the F1 game, of course. We had Jack Aiken in the lead, Giotto in third. We had like a racing point in second. And in the end of it, because obviously when you DNF, the game just autopilots and auto-simulates. And so we don't know how it happened, but Lando has ended up winning that Grand Prix then. In a race where I've DNF'd, got 0 points. And so following that, I'm still trying to process being taken out and blown up by the safety car, by the way. But after that DNF then, and Lando coming through seemingly for the win then, annoyingly, you know, it's just what it is with the F1 game, I guess. Annoyingly, that's what happens when you DNF. It just simulates to the default, you know, what the R&D tree says. Lando's won. He's got 25 points in the bag. So we've come out of that one now with 2 rounds to go. We are now 9 points behind him. And we've got Mexico and Brazil. Mexico, our car should be very good around there. So Lando's going to be good around there. And Brazil, well, it's never been my favourite circuit. We've had some good races in the past few seasons. But now the ball is back in Lando's court. I believe, ironically, after all this chaos and negativity and mayhem, I think mathematically we have won the Constructors' Championship today, but I will confirm that to you next episode at the start. But I'm just still trying to process this. I've seen it all. I've seen it all. Trust me, when I say I turned round that right-hander and I saw a faint silver chrome blob in the distance, I did not think that was going to be, oh, it's the safety car coming through into the racing line. I don't know what to say, guys. I actually don't know what to say. This season has literally had it all. Literally had it all. Guys, if you did enjoy the episode, then be sure to hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're new around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. And I guess it's game fully back on, and it's actually squeaky bum time for us because we have to overturn a 9-point deficit in 2 races. Both races where our teammate may be very, very strong. Find out what happens next time. Till the next one, hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.